of JUSP are two young people in Italy. They are experts in software and security, and they are young, 26-year-old, and they have worked in software and security for several years before deciding to start up JUSP, which was founded in November of 2011. After few years that they were working on a project for clients, so they decided to start this project for themselves, looking at the success that Square was having in the US. Personally, I joined the company in February of 2012. First as an investor. I personally come from a background in retail banking. I worked about 20 years in retail banking, first of all for McKinsey, and my last position was also for the BNP Paribas group in Italy, one of the largest banking group in Europe and the world, actually. So I was the expert of payment and of retail banking that joined the company first of all as an angel investor, and since May of last year I am the CEO of the company, together with of course helping the two founders to grow the company.
Okay.
I said the investors are basically two classes of investors. So there are some angels investors. I'm one of them, actually the one who has put more money in the company. There are other 3 people that have put substantial amount of money and also time. And then we have also some other small angel investors. So totally JUSP has something like 10, 11 private investors, angels investors, which joined the company in February 2012 with an investment of 650, 700,000 US dollars. And then in March of this year, 2013, we closed a round of financing with 2 venture capital funds in Italy, which are called Principia and Vertis. And the round of financing was around 5-6 million US dollars. It was the first, the most important round of financing ever done in Italy for a company which is still pre-revenue, so still, let's say, in a seed stage, if you want. So we do have now institutional investors, as we see, and also angel investors that are actually not only putting money, of course, but also helping the company, in some cases as managers, as in my case, as also in the case of the CFO, Paolo Guida, who also is an angel investor. The company that works in merchant services space, we have worked on a mobile POS solution as our first product, a mobile POS solution that is compliant with the chip and pin regulation. So it's available for all chip and pin markets, meaning basically Europe and most of also the other countries in the world, except the US, basically. And the difference that we just differentiate JUSP to the other competitors are basically that, first of all, we have developed the technology by ourselves, so we have made a proprietary device. So compared to other players that are in the market that just bought the device from manufacturers, we are actually decided to produce the device ourselves, and this is, I think, a very important element in our strategy. And also, we have developed a technology which is unique to ourselves, in the sense that we are the only one chip and pin device, mobile POS, that works with the audio jack, which means that our device can actually be attached, plugged into the phone, and makes basically one element between the phone and a device, which we think is very important because it's basically the same experience as Square in the US. We think that Square has been very successful in the US because it's very simple. You just plug the dongle into the audio jack and start make the payment. So we wanted to replicate this simplicity and this user experience, and that's why we chose to use the technology of the audio jack, and we also have a patent pending on the communication between the phone and the device. The other point is since we were able to develop the product by ourselves, we don't have to pay any margin to the manufacturer. So our device costs much less than our competitor device. So we are basically the only one in the market which are sells a device below the 50 euros threshold, which we think from market research that we have done is a very important psychological threshold for merchants not to overcome the 50 euro price. So basically these three elements, so proprietary machine, having a device which has a UC audio jack, and also the lowest price in the market, we think are really the critical success factor for JUSP. We will start from Italy, and because it's our home country, and it's where, of course, we know very well the market, the distributors, and the telecom operators. And then we will choose some other European countries, looking not only at the size and attractiveness of the market, but also to the possibility to really differentiate from our competitors. Just to give you an example, most of our competitors are now already battling in Germany and UK, and so because also two of them are actually based in Germany. So, for example, we don't think to arrive in the market, in these markets, and make a third player or fourth player in this market. We will try to choose markets where we can be actually one of the first to enter. And in fact, we are not only looking at Europe. We have set up a base in Singapore in July of this year to manage the international expansion from Singapore, and we are actually looking at some markets both in Asia but also in Africa, for example, which actually can be very attractive in terms of potential for mobile POS. It's more or less what I said before. It's just to keep in one sentence, is the most user-friendly mobile POS with the lowest price. If you want to use a very commercial USP, I think I would choose this one. Well, I think we see the market in maybe a slightly different way than our competitors from a few points of view. First of all, we see that mobile POS are not only for micro merchants, but we see that mobile POS are actually very good for all kind of merchants. So for, let's say, average merchants, but even for large corporations and large retailers. So we think the mobile POS, it's really a very good device for all the market. So we are not only concentrating on micro merchants, as some our competitors do, but also we are talking with several large corporates, corporations that have, for example, remote sales force, or even big box retailers. So we actually think that mobile POS is really also a substitute of, let's say, the traditional POS. So it's not only something that will grow the market, but will also substitute, at least partially, the current market. So, I mean, I've seen forecasts from analysts that say that in 5 years' time, 50% of the total stock of market will be mobile POS, and I think it's actually quite true. I think that I see this trend actually quite strongly, especially growing in the last period. On the other hand, if you look at the geographies, we also see the world in a slightly different way, as I was saying, because of course you can see the big markets, like of course starting from the US, but the big markets of Europe, they are mainly markets which are already, where penetration of POS is already very high, and of course mobile POS will have a big growth there, but it is a tougher job because you have to substitute the traditional POS. It's not only the growth part. for example, you have markets, actually very big markets potentially in other parts of the world, like Africa, for example, but in Southeast Asia as well. In India is one of them actually, where the traditional POS is still not so penetrated. So you have to put in place the infrastructure of acquiring in the country, and it's very easy to think that if you have to put in place an infrastructure of POS today in 2013 or 14, you will go to mobile POS directly. You will not even pass to the traditional POS. So if you look at the world in this way, you see that even smaller countries in Africa and in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, can have actually incredible potential, incredible opportunity for mobile POS and for JUSP. Well, I think that chip and PIN, I would say that it's more or less quite similar in the sense that the regulations are more or less the same. Of course, what is really changing it's sensitivity to price. So if you go to emerging countries, sensitivity to price, which is already important in Europe, it becomes even more important, of course. What I really see differently in different parts of the world, I would say that in some emerging countries or in some countries, there are still, maybe I would say there is still a business case for a chip and sign or even a swipe dongle for a certain period of time. So I'm sure that in 2-3 years' time, chip and PIN will be the only viable device in all the market in Europe, in the world except the US. But currently we see a lot of implementation in places like Russia or Brazil, where they are still using swipe or chip and sign, and we see these. Although we have chosen a different way because we only work with chip and PIN because we think that this is certainly the end game. But in the next 2 years, I think there will be complementarity between the chip and PIN solution and other kind of mobile POS. I think the advice is to really think very well at the market. The market is becoming very crowded. There are already startups that have received big funding. So I think that if you really want to be a player in the European market, you must be very well funded, and I see difficult for venture capital now to invest in another company in Europe. On the other hand, I don't see a local position, let's say, as viable. So I mean, this is a market where economies of scale are very important. So you cannot actually work only in one country, even if you want to be the leader in your local country. I don't see this as a viable strategy. So you really need to go big or go home, like the US people say.